Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Pod Return to the Waking Saiyans. This is a companion podcast where we explore the lore and story of Pydaelin and beyond. My name is Jen, and I'm joined by my co-host and researcher.
I'm Levi.
Hello, Levi.
Hello, Jen. Today we're going to continue our trip through the Limsa Lominsa main story quest. This is part 2 of 3.
There is more. This is the weird middle child of MSQ in Limsa, in my opinion.
I wouldn't call it that, but we'll find out soon.
It's like the boring part of the sandwich.
The filling? That's the good part of the sandwich.
No, it's like the boring part of the sandwich.
You're not there for the bread.
Which is like, the lettuce, I guess. It's like,
lettuce...
it adds a little crunch. Okay, maybe tomato, because a lot of people have strong feelings about tomato.
Can I recommend a good heirloom?
Which is what most of us get, yes.
Anyway, we're not here to talk about tomatoes and Jen's weird bread love sandwich hate. We're here to continue our trip through Limsa. So, Jen, what happened last time?
Okay, well, we arrive in town. We have a bad experience with some yellow jackets because they accuse us of being kidnappers. And Baderon tells them off. And then we go out to Summerford Farms to help out on the farm. Pretty much.
Perfect.
Okay.
Good recap. So we're off to meet Stalevern at the Summerford Farms. Stalevern employs former pirates, and he's short-handed right now. The farm is in Middle Noscea, so we're going to head out of Limsa's Zephyr Gate to reach it. Middle Noscea is a gorgeous, scrubby grassland intersected with dusty roads and stream beds of white rocks.
This is true. I cannot fault the accuracy of these statements.
And the whole area is cut in two by a giant cleft left over from the Calamity.
That Calamity, man.
So as soon as we step outside the city, we get hit with that La Noscea music, which, especially in daytime, makes me feel like it's time for adventure.
It's a nice mix of kind of optimistic adventuring music, but also referencing this kind of bucolic landscape and lifestyle that you encounter all over La Noscea. So I think the music, they fucking nailed it.
Yeah. I wish that I loved the city music as much as the outdoor music.
Yeah, the city's fine. It's just a little too maritime for me.
So we head for the farm. It's a short trip up a low rise. We pass by some fenced-in orchards on the way up. The farm compound itself is fortress-like. There are rough stone walls topped with a metal fence that surround the whole compound. This place used to be a Yellow Jacket camp known as Camp Bearded Rock before it was wiped out by the Calamity. So that's why it looks like a fortress. It was one at one point in time.
That makes sense.
This farm... Summerford Farms is part of Admiral Merylvid's settlement initiative. She's trying to get these pirates to take up a more respectable, less violent trade, and she's offering grants for those who can work the land and make an income and a living off the land to get them going. So the farm is part of that, and if they succeed, great, they get some fat cash. If they fail, then there's no grant. So there's some pressure there to make sure that they perform to get this big farm payment, this big farming subsidy.
Yeah, it's going. It could be going better.
It could be going much better because all the pirates don't like to work on the farm.
They really fucking hate it. It's like half and half.
As you walk around the whole area, there are groups of farmhand pirates just like hanging out and getting into fistfights.
Oh yeah, just whooping it up with their ale and their songs and their hooliganism.
So they are.
I get it. I can't imagine what sort of transition literally from, the life of a pirate, which is drinking and carousing and stealing and the wind in your face and the open sea.
That
and then
seems
all
like
of a sudden,
propaganda.
All of a sudden you're just like a landlubber who has to pick oranges.
It's harsh.
Yeah, how do you live a lifestyle that is like on the straight and narrow? They don't know how to do that.
So we meet Stalevern. He is a balding eye patch Roegadyn. He used to be a pirate captain, but has now taken his crew to land with him. His ship was destroyed in the Calamity, so probably a good time for a career change.
And I think he's taken to it very well. He's a natural leader. He sees potential in people, and he also can tell when they're, being shits.
He may be a bit too forgiving in some cases.
Yeah.
Since half the people we're going to meet today are Roegadyn, let's talk about some Roegadyns. Time for a lore dump. Jen.
Huzzah! Well, that's why we're here, right?
These are the big, beefy folks. Big, thick bodies, thick everything, pretty much. At least on the male side. The ladies tend to be taller and...
When you're creating a female Roegadyn, I mean, they're very fit. They're very, very muscular. They're very tall, but proportionate, not like overly bulked up in any case.
They all have these very square and pronounced noses.
Right.
It's like a rectangle on their face almost.
Yeah, the flat bridge and Easter Island head vibe.
Nice. Good comparison. Roegadyn tend to make their homes in harsh, rugged environments. I'm assuming it's not by preference that they choose the worst places to live.
It's I guess, opportunistic. Because no one else can hang. Roegadyn's can hang.
For the sea wolves, they came here like we talked about in the first Limsa episode. They came here involuntarily. Their shipwrecked here, essentially, and they were forced to make do. So I think for the ones in La Noscea...
They could have done worse. Jeez Louise.
They could have done worse, though there's, of course, the kobold friction. And the Sahagin, too. The Roegadyn culture in general exalts strength and looks down on the weak. So not especially healthy. Good for pirating, maybe.
I guess. I don't know. I feel like that trope never pans out in the long run. 'Cause I feel like that prizing strength above weakness is going to be just a mode of survival, not necessarily like a creed for their people. So it's not unique. Good job, Roegadyns, for just settling on the most basic tenet of living.
There are two types of Roegadyn. There are the Sea Wolves and the Hellsguard. The Sea Wolves are the ones that we are so familiar with so far. These are the ones that live in Limsa Lominsa. They are the pirates that came from the Northern Empty so long ago. And that's pretty much it. We're living their lifestyle right now and their successors.
Yeah.
Limsa is above any other peoples. It is a Roegadyn city, by population and by history.
Yep. And you can tell the difference between Sea Wolves and Hellsguard because Sea Wolves have crazy-ass names that you can't pronounce. Hellsguard have really easy names.
Sea Wolves also have primarily aqua skin tones, whereas Hellsguard are browns and reds.
You know what, Levi? I don't judge people by the color of their skin, okay? I judge them by their stupid-ass names. It's not true. But they are really fucking hard to say.
I agree. So the Hellsguard actually predated the Sea Wolves and Eorzea. They also come from the Northern Empty, but a different group crossed over from the Roegadyn's homeland to Eorzea, and they settled in the mountains. Seems like a long trek from the shores where they arrived presumably to the mountains, but there we have it. The details of that journey and that arrival are still sketchy.
Sketchy as in, like, they don't have a written record of that history themselves, or they do but they don't want to share it, or...
The sources I have don't go into the details as to what their journey was like.
I see.
The Hellsguard have a tradition of firewalking, which is said to awaken their mystic talents.
Okay, that's actually interesting. How does that manifest in our interactions with Hellsguard Roegadyn in general? Like, does it at all? Is there any sort of hint that they firewalk?
Except for the very odd person, we meet very few Hellsguard in the first part of the game.
Right, yeah, I think they're all sea wolves.
We see some in Ul'dah and Thanalan because that's closer to where they hail from, but in Limsa it is 100% sea wolves except for my character, who is a Hellsguard.
Sure, yes.
Also, Hellsguard tend to eat most anything that is remotely edible.
Oh, I remember this now. This was the goat talk.
We don't talk about the hidden episode 0 that we scrapped.
They're the goats of Eorzea because they eat all the things.
Yes, they are the goats of Eorzea.
Oh, good for them. Waste not, want not, as they say.
And that's a Roegadyn. So back to our story now.
All right.
Back to the old main story.
Here we go. Farming and milling.
If you want to do side quests, the side quests around here all are about farm life. You can pick fruits or remove rocks from orchards or whatever. It's not very interesting and it's not needed whatsoever in terms of leveling. So I'd say skip it.
I did it. I guess I've gotten to the point in my gameplay where I hate seeing the side quest bubbles floating around, making a mess, like just the visual clutter of it. So I'm doing them now.
You should be able to filter it out. That should be a setting where you can just hide side quests.
No, but they're still there.
They are still there, but you wouldn't have them on your map or whatever saying, hey, look at me.
Well, it's also, now that I'm playing, I'm going back to back to my roots. I'm a level 10 character. I can go back and do all of these level 7 side quests and still get a not unmeaningful amount of XP or gil at this point.
I would never recommend them for the rewards. The only benefit, in my opinion, is that they tend to relate to where you are, and the value of them is debatable. But so we do get a taste of farm life and doing farm chores. Is it good gameplay? Probably not. Is it good for context? Maybe.
Definitely for context, I would say. It's just more immersion, more living in the moment, in the land, and experiencing the lived life of all of these people outside of MSQ, which I enjoy.
Carry on.
I will.
So we're back at Stalevern now. This old, balding, eye-patched former pirate captain. We have one more box to check before we can actually get questing here, which is the gear check.
Ah, yes, I remember this. Time to go spend all of the money you've earned so far in buying gear.
So you gear up, it's fine. It's the tutorial for item levels, no big deal. And there's a merchant just down on a lower tier of this farm encampment you can buy from, so it's pretty easy.
Oh my god, I missed that totally. I went back to Hawker's Alley.
You can see on your mini-map there's a merchant symbol.
How sad.
I hope you have the Aetherite at least for the farm.
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
It's the first thing you do is you attune.
Good instincts. If you don't attune, you're an asshole.
This is true.
You heard it here first from Jen. Anyway, once Stalevern is satisfied, he tells us the situation. As we know, there have been these kidnappings going on nearby in Limsa and also in Noscea. It seems the farm is being creeped on by some people with azure face tattoos. Farm hands are convinced that these guys are the kidnappers and they refuse to work. Maybe just an excuse, I don't know, but they won't work until these things are dealt with, so here we come in.
Whatever.
Stalevern's acting like they're all afraid of these guys, but there's some dissonance here because the farmhands are all former pirates. You would think they'd be spoiling for a fight and a chance to get their fists bloody or whatever because they're complaining about the farm life so much. But no, these big tough pirates are complaining to the big boss Stalevern that they won't work until someone fixes this problem.
No, I mean, they're like a classic pirate. They're opportunists. So they see an excuse to postpone the farming and like, hey, you know what? I feel threatened. And if you could I really don't feel comfortable showing up for work when there's this obvious threat. And I really, as the employer, I think it's your responsibility to deal with this and create a safe working environment. And then they can go like fuck off until this thing is dealt with. That's how I see it. It's completely cynical.
It's like if you're a teenager, or at least if I'm a teenager and I'm trying to get out of chores, the slightest impediment is like, oh, can't do the chores.
Nope. I gotta wash dishes. Oh, I don't have any gloves. Where are the gloves? There are no gloves. I'm not washing dishes. I'm not putting my hands in the filthy, wet food water.
So here we are. We're going to go bust some azure tattooed heads.
I don't remember this at all.
We're on the trail here. We track them down to this little haunted cavern. And this place is a little circular cave underneath the farm.
Oh, this place. Yeah. I miss it every time. Because the marker shows on the map, so I'm heading to the marker. And then I get there, and there's nothing. If there's Z-axis fuckery, I'm out.
Eventually, we find this entrance. We descend down below the earth. This place is a natural stone cave. It's got a big rune-inscribed pillar in the center of it. And it has these little orange floating ghosties called bogies flying around. And these are the actual ghosts of Eorzea, like spirits of the dead, typically left behind by people with unfinished business.
Huh. Classic ghost.
These creatures, they look ridiculous. They look like little sperms with wings.
I literally have never visualized them as little sperms.
They've got the little tail and the big bulbous body.
Yep. I guess the proportions are just so exaggerated from like a real sperm that I couldn't
These
apply.
Are fat sperms.
They're very fat sperms with like big floppy ears.
They flap around when they fly. They're the wings.
Wings. Yep. See, here I am, like these floating balls with giant ears, but they're actually just sperms.
They're Dumbo sperm because they fly with their ears.
Oh, little Dumbo octopus, they're so cute.
These guys, though, they're not hostile, so we can go and check out the pillar in peace, and we do so. But we are interrupted during our inspection by a woman's voice.
I am the waves that bear. I am the winds that guide. I am the evening stars. I am the morning sky. I am born of the sea, and there shall I die.
This is a character called a cultured conjurer, a white-haired Mikote lady with purple tattoos on her neck. They look very similar to Thancred's from the Ul'dah questline.
The handsome stranger?
That guy.
I miss him.
She also has her viewfinder-like aetherometer slung around her neck. And we'll learn in just a short time this person is Y'shtola.
I was surprised when this happened. I'm like, oh, like, of course. In whatever city you start in, there's going to be a Sharlayan scholar who will eventually accompany you as you're, fighting some bullshit, and then the Ascians start to filter in, and then all of these guys come together. Sharlayan scholars, scions, and masked men, suddenly they start to descend upon your personal space.
Every starting quest line for every city has the same beats to it.
Right.
It's just the way they're portrayed are very different.
Right. It's just another skin. It was actually a really special moment for me personally because, well, Y'shtola and we've been through some shit over the past year. So, and because I started in Ul'dah, I didn't get a lot of experience with her as like her, her early conjurer self. I mean, it's obvious, like, you're being followed, which is creepy. Or you just happen to show up at a very significant etheric area of the landscape at the same time.
She tells you this, but you are presumably being nudged by Hydaelyn into these places. Hydaelyn, in terms of her kind of marking you as someone that is important to her.
Right.
She's presumably trying to engineer this in like a very kind of broad ocean current type sense of pushing these things along. That makes sense,
yeah.
The audio we just heard is her translating the runes on the pillar. This is the Limsan lifestyle and a prayer to those that die on land and hopes that they will end up in the sea. We can infer possibly that the bogey, the ghost spirits here, are possibly marooned sailors that died on land and they are stuck here.
Forever pining for the ocean. That's sad.
Well, we're going to smack them down in a minute.
Great.
And that'll
releasing
free
their
ether.
Ether into, okay, well then I feel less bad.
Good. The Encyclopedia Eorzea notes that ghosts actually have flesh in this game. So it's not like you hitting this etheric manifestation. These are actually like fleshy spirit containers.
Damn. Like sperm.
Like sperm. Exactly.
Great.
Anyway, like you mentioned, Jen, Y'shtola has been spying on us. She's been trying to root out the kidnappers, and she suspected us for a hot minute, but now she realizes, no, we're not actually suspect. We're on the same trail as her.
Yep.
Unfortunately, this little chat is cut short by a big fat guy dropping down.
Oh, man. This guy he was terrifying to me when I first started playing. Like, he's impossibly huge. He also has a creepy face.
It's a giant gray-skinned blob of flesh with whipping vine-like arms and multiple rows of teeth.
An impossibly wide mouth.
And it's covered in moss and plant growth, and it's bearing down on us rapidly.
He's mad.
When you start in most places, these things are just kind of hanging out. They tend to be pretty docile for the most part. They're carnivorous, but also they don't like come and chase you down from a million miles away.
No, they're They're docile.
This guy, though, he's the scariest Gubu in the game because when you see him in this cutscene, he's charging at you.
He's violent, man.
And the camera shows right on his teeth with his open mouth and all these rows of like pointy teeth.
Yeah, it's not great.
While this thing is charging us, Y'shtola is busy analyzing the etheric disturbance that brought her here and speculating as to who's trying to silence us with this apparent trap. So this giant monster is charging down. You can hear its feet stomping in the cutscene, and she's busy speculating and musing about the greater circumstances here. Eventually, she grudgingly pauses on her reflections once the thing is inches away from you and roaring in your face.
A little help?
We have to dispatch it before we can proceed with this analysis, I guess.
I guess. So we do that with Y'shtola's help. She's the healer in the situation. So huzzah.
She's got this little itty bitty leafy twig that she wields as her weapon.
It's literally the symbol for conjurer, like in the rest of the game.
Thanks, Jen.
You're welcome.
You're not selling, though, how absurd it is to see this twig, no bigger than her hand, being whipped around and flourished during this fight. So we start fighting this creature. Y'shtola is healing you, and midway through, some bogies get aggravated, and they close in on you as well. So these formerly passive ghosts have gotten all riled up by all the hubbub, and they attack you. And then following that, we have some little tiny Gubus come in. These are maybe half the size of the big one. And you dispatch those guys. You focus on the ads first in general. Then you take on the big guy.
Which is not difficult.
No.
You know what? That's privilege talking. Okay, like as a new player, probably not that easy, especially when the ads come in and you've got to focus your attention and figure out how to push your buttons.
Once the fight's done, we notice a small glowing blue crystal has appeared on the floor during the scuffle. We don't know where it came from. It's just there when the fight's over. And we reach down to pick it up. We're overwhelmed by a vision. And we get the same cutscene as in the Ul'dah path, which is we get drawn into the ethereal sea and we meet Hydaelyn, and she tells us to collect the other crystals to avert disaster.
So the light is waning.
Then we wake up.
Y'shtola's like, hey, you okay there? And she has discovered that something was done specifically to the Gubu to make it enraged. Poor thing was stabbed. She found a knife. And a knife specifically used for cutting rope. This is a knife you find on ships. Obviously. It's like, well, that doesn't narrow down the perpetrator very much. But still, it is a clue. So somebody's fucking with us.
And once she's assessed the evidence, she then asks us what happened to us, why we fainted just now. And we tell her what happens. We presumably give her a recap of our vision. And she's like, oh, interesting. So this is not surprising to her. It's bemusing at best. Mm-hmm. But she knows about this kind of phenomena. So she heads off. She gives us the knife to show to Stelvern. And she says, we'll meet again. And off she goes. So Jen, this is our second cerebral Makote we've met in as many episodes.
She is way more charismatic than Clea.
I wouldn't even call it charismatic. As we'll learn later on, Y'shtola, she tends to be pretty...
She's I wouldn't say uptight, but she's very serious. She's one of the more serious people of the group.
She wins you over by being on top of it, not by being a charmer. Unlike Thancred, for instance.
But she is still... There's a warmth when she approaches you. And there's a de-escalation in the way that she communicates. And it's not pure data. Yeah, she comes across like she isn't anybody to fuck with. She knows her stuff. But like I said, there's something much more approachable. Well, I mean, she opens up the entire interaction with reciting like a poem, which is a really beautiful moment. So she has like a connection to Limsa and its history in a way that is endearing.
Whereas Clea is obnoxious. She does the same thing as Y'shtola did, which is she's in a tense situation and she gets all cerebral. But whereas Clea is just busy spouting bullshit about stratagems, and that's the way the game chooses to portray her as being a smart person, Y'shtola is actually, she is saying things that are insightful, and she treats the fracas as a annoying distraction versus as being a optimization problem. She's very much
Right.
like Sherlock Holmes is, Y'shtola is.
Yes.
In terms of, okay, so I'm always thinking, even in this tense situation, I'm picking up a million things and I'm analyzing them.
Yes, like she's always in an analytical mode, but in a way to me that I love it. When she does her little like hand on the hip and she like taps her knuckles against the side of her face. You know, she's cooking something up. She's thinking of something brilliant. She's handling it. I don't know, like you couldn't possibly feel nervous about anything when Y'shtola's in the room.
I thought it was interesting just to see a similar kind of concept implemented so differently in such a short time period.
Yes.
We go back to the farm. We show the knife to Stalevern, and he speculates that the culprits are wanting to Shanghai pirates back into a pirating life.
I mean, I feel like a bunch of them would go willingly. I don't know why you'd need to like threaten them with knives, but whatever.
That's a fair point. We'll learn soon enough that that's not the case quite in terms of these people's motivations, but I do think that many people here would jump at the chance to go back and be a pirate and not be on the Admiral's bad side. Some of them are happy to do piracy, even though it does earn the ire of their superiors. So we tell Stalevern about Y'shtola. He fills us in on her deal. She studies Aether and is often in the area. Stalevern goes on to complain about a Severin and his men never getting the job done.
Here we go.
So we're going to go and round them up so Stalevern can give them a talking to. I expected this part of the quest to actually be, let's go look for pirates, but no, oops, they're actually missing.
Yeah.
But
No. You've got a ways to go before. That's a whole other. See, that's the thing. But this segment of the MSQ, to me was like, aside from the encounter with Y'shtola, God, it's so forgettable. And maybe it's because we've already done this in Ul'dah, so it seems very much like the same shit over again, which it is.
I disagree, actually, and I will get to that in our wrap-up thoughts, but I don't think that's true.
Okay. So this is Severin's crew, quote unquote. His buddies.
Yes.
There's like 3 of them, 3 or 4 of them. To run around and be like, hey, Stalevern's he's wondering where the fuck you are. Get back to work. And they've always got like, but then they go back.
So we find Severin, a bandana wearing Cure, and he's out down by the road. It seems like he's selling the farm's produce to goblins, but the goblins betrayed him. And he'll agree to go back to the farm if we bail him out of this situation.
These double dealing goblins, blah blah blah. Was it over a sack of oranges? I think so. He was like basically stealing from the farm to sell the goods to the goblins. These double dealing gobbies, blah blah blah. So we have to go over there and I guess rescue also like his crew. Weren't they being?
Yes, his crew got captured during this deal.
Right, and Severin was like, peace, and he basically bailed.
Yes,
which he will do again and again. So we go rescue his people, and they're very grateful. They think Severin's a sack of shit.
But they still hang out with him.
It's some sort of like pirate's honor. I don't know what the fuck. Or at least they don't have very high expectations for his behavior. All around a very toxic relationship.
Agreed.
Anyway, so we rescue them from the gobbies. We fight some gobbies. We go back to Severin, and he's like, gee, thanks. You know what? Why don't you go ahead and take these oranges to the trading post like I was supposed to do? Okay.
So here's a better crime for you, Severin. Why don't you take these oranges to the trading post, get paid for them, and then pocket the cash?
Right?
Like, this is a far less risky crime.
Maybe he was just trying to launder his efforts there. Like, oh no, he could, have some plausible deniability with the gobbies maybe jumping him on the path.
Maybe.
And stealing his oranges or whatever.
Possibly. He's bad at doing crimes, though. As we'll find out.
He's not great.
He's a pretty lazy criminal.
And a terrible friend.
So next up, we drop off the oranges, we get paid, and so on. Next, we're off to meet with, help me out here, Jen, Freyval?
No idea. Freyval, fucking Christ.
We'll call him Freyval.
Actually, okay, so there are a couple of, a number of names that I just started calling them like wide load or beef loaf or whatever, or like whatever the closest, assortment of consonants that is familiar to me.
Those are Hillsguard names.
I apologize, but this guy's going to be Freewall.
Wide loaf is a perfect Hellsguard name.
It is, but there's already a sea wolf named Wideloaf. Sorry. So we're going to call this guy Freevol. Let's just call him Freevol.
Who is a Roegadyn botanist. He's got the hatchet and everything for botany. And he's actually one of the farmhands that does his job. And he's also disgusted by these slacker pirates doing nothing. It seems that some pack of assholes has stolen these tools from the farm, and they're going to take them and make them into weapons.
Make them into weapons. Because that's really easy to do.
A classic thing is actually like the swords into plowshares and vice versa. War's done, so we go and take our swords and melt them down.
Yeah,
and make
this
plowshares.
is our retirement now. We're getting into the nice farm life on the homestead. And these guys are just like, hey, we're going to steal some shovels, we're going to make some swords, and then we're going to get back into pirating. Like, how? Why?
Freevol has actually sworn off violence. And he's like, I can't even fight these guys because I have sworn off that lifestyle.
Good for him. That's really hard. Yeah, it's like quitting, smoking cold turkey.
He found a loophole, though, which is we get to go and beat up these pirates. And we do.
We have a good time.
This can be a bit hard because you probably don't have a range attack yet unless you're a caster. And these guys are in a very dense camp of pirates. They're down the bit by the river.
This was great. I walked in there, pulled aggro on all of them, and then just AoE'd them all to shit.
Way to flex your tank privilege.
It was great. No, as a caster, you can pick them off one by one. But I just went in there and just wailed on the whole pack. It was very satisfying.
I guess that's it, actually, because you can't start as a rogue here. So you're either a marauder or an arcanist. So I guess you do have the tools to handle it. The worst thing would be not knowing your own strength as a marauder, because you are tough enough. You use your rampart ability and you walk in there and you can survive these hits long enough to knock these guys down because you're a big beefcake as a tank. But if you were to be more timid, actually that might be where you run into trouble because you just want to own it and knock them down.
Yeah,
ASAP.
Get in there and get out.
Anyway, we do that. We get the goods back and drop them off with Freevol. Great. However, Freevol suspects that Severin, once again, was the person who arranged this sale or this theft to these pirates.
Of course he was.
And we go and narc on him back to Stalevern.
Which we really don't need to do. He's well aware of his bullshit.
Well, this is the last straw for Stalevern, though. He's like, this is it. I'm done with this guy.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, though, Severin has once again disappeared.
This fucking guy. Yeah, we're babysitting Severin. That's the MSQ for this point in time.
If this guy were gone from the farm, it'd all be peachy. This is like the problem person.
Yes.
You call him the bad orange of the bunch.
Oh my god. I guess so. We haven't found any apples on this farm yet.
Severin has taken his band of flunkies who don't learn, and he's headed down the Woad Whisper Canyon, which is that big cleft in the land that was mentioned earlier, left behind by the calamity.
Yeah, so now they have this enormous scaffolding structure that they've built to traverse the...
The land has split and shifted vertically, so the part that we're on is, I'd call it 50 feet, roughly.
Yeah.
Or you call it maybe 20 yalms.
Okay. Sure, yes.
In the Final Fantasy parlance, I don't know.
Anyway. I'm okay with that, yeah.
So there's this big vertical gap, and that scaffolding that you mentioned, Jen, winds its way down. So it's like a partial stairs, partial bridge across the canyon.
Yes.
And also there is a rocky ridge that runs along it, and that is where Severin has gone. We
find his bros scattered along the way.
Yeah, they're complaining about him leading them into a trap. Mm-hmm. So he set them up for some bullshit. And the first guy is like, that Severin, I don't trust him.
Uh-huh.
So I got away. Why don't you find better friends, bro?
I don't know. I think there's this loyalty that you can't just toss by the wayside. This, again, the pirate code, which we know nothing about.
We do know much about it because we talked about that in Limsa episode 1, Jen. One of the code tenets is, you shall not sell your fellow Limsans into slavery. Jen.
Well, shit.
Yep.
Rule number 1.
I think it's number 3, but whatever. Point being, Severin is...
Pretty good rule.
Is a big code breaker. Not the cool kind, the lame kind.
Yeah, not the World War II kind.
We follow this little stone ridge that is set into the side of the canyon wall, up the path, heading up towards this waterfall that rushes down like the entrance to the canyon. Eventually, after we pass by another pirate who had a similar fate.
Yeah, they're all very beat up.
We find the rest of the farmhands and Severin, and they're being faced down by a low-rent Kratos.
Nice.
I'm serious. This
guy, bald guy with face paint. Yeah.
Pale alabaster skin. He's got a half face paint. He's big and bulky. And he's kicking Severin while a masked lady watches. And you can see a bit of azure tattoo poking out from under her mask.
Yeah, they all have facial markings. We have heard tell of these markings before. In the dialogue that we overhear, we find out that Severin is a deserter of this group.
The Serpent Reavers.
The Serpent Reavers. And the Serpent Reavers are apparently under thrall of the Sahagin, doing their dirty work. They've joined forces.
The Sahagin are fish people. If you know D&D stuff, they look just like Sahuagin.
Oh, okay.
Tall, gangly.
They're like bipedal fishmen.
Yes, exactly. But they also have very sharp facial features too. It's not like a big goldfish head.
No. Their proportions, I mean, their like head to body proportion is definitely more towards the human side of the spectrum. They don't have like giant gaping fish mouths or eyes or whatever.
Yep.
Anyway, so Serpent Reavers working with the Sahagin, bad news. And Severin is a deserter, which is violation, the biggest violation ever in these like the shitty pirate land. So instead of death, they are asking for a trade. Like, okay, if you want to leave, then you owe us warm bodies. So he was luring his crew, his buddies, into this situation so that he could trade them for his freedom. Gross. So yeah, he's on the ground. He's getting kicked to shit by this guy, by the Kratos guy.
He sees us approach and assumes we're here to help Severin, which maybe...
Kind of.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Incidentally, yes, but also no. But this whole thing gets spoiled by the appearance. The camera sees, but we don't presumably see a black-robed figure lurking by a nearby boulder.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the same black-masked Ascian as we saw in the Ul'dah questline.
Yeah, he is some Ascian minion.
I'm pretty sure he's the same person, just he appears here because that's the story beat we're getting at this point.
Yeah, totally.
Once again, he sees us and intones this dark incantation, and out springs a massive clay golem from the earth.
Yeah, just like we did in Ul'dah. Which is I don't know. I think maybe I wish that we fought something different. I don't know if that fucking matters. But
it does. It felt appropriate in the Sildi ruins.
Yes.
In Ul'dah, it does not feel appropriate here. It's like, I expected there to be a different enemy, but nope, it's the exact same clay golem.
What about like a giant water sprite, since that's where we were in that environment. We were surrounded by water sprites, and is there such a thing as like a water golem?
I mean, there can be, I'm sure. In this game, I'm trying to think of what we've seen for giant water creatures, and there are some, but...
Pudding or something.
Well, how about just like a stone golem, because the area we're in is very heavy and hard gray stone.
Oh, so you're like mad that it's clay and not stone. There's no continuity between the clay golem and the surrounding environment.
Anyway, it is what it is, obviously.
This isn't a limestone golem. This is a fucking red clay golem, immersion broken.
That's some ribcage xylophone shit right there. Either way, though, my biggest gripe actually is not the type of creature we face, but the fact that this Ascian could have waited 5 minutes and had us be weakened by fighting the pirates, then drop a golem on us. We're about to face down these tough guys here. Hold it in a little bit. Keep it in your pants for 5 minutes. Let us fight these tough...
maybe that could have been our test, right? Like if he's trying to judge our strength.
He's trying to kill us because he expects the golem to kill us, and he's complaining the whole time about how we're too tough to be killed by the golem.
Yeah.
So strength is unparalleled or something.
He interrupts us being like heavily outnumbered. and scares everybody off so that he can fight us himself.
Either way, we do it. We beat up the golem. The Ascian is astounded, and this time he's peering down at us from up on a rocky ridge higher in the canyon, and we look up there, but he's disappeared a second before we look up.
Ooh.
And now Y'shtola runs up, just seconds too late, ruing that the snake slithered away.
Oh, so you know this guy.
She knows of him, at least.
Yes.
And then we get a flashback to Y'shtola's past.
Right, pre-calamity. So in Ystrolla's flashback, she's in Limsa Lominsa, city proper. I think she's at the anchor yard, and she sees a group of pirates that she's never seen before, having kind of a hushed discussion. And she's saying to herself, like, okay, this is a group of people that I've never seen before. This coincides with an uptick in activity with the kobolds and the Sahagin. I wonder if they're related. This is worrisome. And she goes down to the docks. A little girl gives her a flower.
Well, that's a time skip. So it fades out and fades in again.
Right. So apparently there's a celebration going on because the Maelstrom have decided to opening a new training ground in a quote-unquote hole in the sea. We'll explore that later. No idea. And so people are kind of gathering around, looking up. There's fireworks and things like that. And she's looking through her viewfinder and noticing just some weird ether shit.
There's a second vision between those two where she's on the docks. She's commenting on how the sea level is rising. And she looks up and sees the red moon Dalamud descending on us. And it's just very ominous. And that ends. And then we see the flower girl.
Yeah, she says something like, the world is becoming less and less like itself.
The very last meeting is presumably right before she meets us for the first time in that ocean cave. Because she sees an etheric disturbance. She runs off to check it out. She comments when she meets us about tracking down an etheric disturbance. Yeah. Much like Thancred did.
Right. 'Cause I'm sure they're still extremely touchy because some of these readings are very much like what they were seeing pre-calamity. You know, obviously, and they're very concerned because in the wake of the calamity, there's still a whole lot of civilization that needs rebuilding. However, we also have an uptick of beastman activity, and she's afraid that the primal threat will rear its ugly head and they'll have to deal with multiple fronts of bullshit.
Yes. There's no more company of heroes this time.
What are we going to do?
That's some foreshadowing right there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, also, speaking of foreshadowing, she makes a comment the very first time you meet her about how fascinating the Aether is, or something like that. Or, no, it's during the flashback, I think, right?
I think so, yeah. Oh, she's like, I can't believe that I can actually see ether. And it's incredible. I never thought I would be able to see ether.
No idea if this was at all envisioned, but that's...
I know. I noticed that too.
But enough hinting at future events. Let's press on here. Yeah. Back in the present, Y'shtola's link pearl pings her ear, and she answers it saying that he got away, presumably the Ascian.
Yep.
And she goes off to do her business, her mysterious business. But before she does, though, she tells us about the Serpent Reavers being thralls to the Sahagin.
So we head back to Stelvern and, Severin and having to deal with all of that.
Right. Severin, though, is actually, in this moment, repentant.
Very much so, yes.
He realizes that he fucked up big time. And we learn in just a moment that he actually had a change of heart at the last minute and tried to defend his crew. And that's why he got beat up.
Right.
Is because he was trying to turn
Make
on
amends.
the Serpent Reavers.
Yes. He was in over his head with this. And Stelvern, before we embarked on this mission, he mentioned that Severin looked a little hunted. I'm like, okay. So yeah, he's gotten himself into some shit and he doesn't know how to deal with it. So now he's fully admitted that he was a piece of shit. And he was going to traffic his friends. He joined the Serpent Reavers, and immediately after he joined, they, quote-unquote, bent the knee to the Sahagin, and that was a complete deal-breaker for him. So, good on that, because, that's a good instinct. Yeah, bail, bro. And he did. But, of course, that meant they were going to fucking find him and kill him or ask for something really despicable in trade, which they did.
Yep. So,
now he's basically committed himself to... atonement, and he's going to turn himself into the Yellow Jackets. And Stelvern is like, you abide by your own moral compass. So if that's what you want to do, I'm fully supportive. However, noting his change of heart, and there is a moral compass within Severin. You always have a place here at Summerford Farms. And he's like, hey, I appreciate that, but I'm going to go and do my time. But before he goes, we are encouraged to go speak to Baderon, because Baderon's kind of, he's very much in with the Yellow Jackets, and they listen to him. So we can tell Baderon Severin's story on his behalf. And so hopefully he can put in a good word with the Yellow Jackets, so he's not, drawn and quartered so much. And so that the, poor kid has a future.
We're also done with our farm work as well.
Yep.
We're on now to the next thing, which Betaron will give us the hookup for. And that's where we'll leave off with today. Jen, what are your thoughts?
I guess the Severin storyline felt a little bit wishy-washy because it wasn't clear to me how this will connect to the narrative at large. I guess I was like, all right, we're gonna go chase after this little, shitfuck pirate again, and not seeing how that was going to connect. I mean, it didn't really, but I guess neither did the Ul'dah stretch of this story, because we're dealing with a mining conglomerate, and we just happened to be in an area where the Ascian was like, all right, I'm gonna ambush them now. So basically, I was waiting for some big story reveal, when really that's not anything that would ever happen.
I disagree with that to an extent. Obviously, this is not the best writing in the game right now, no question. And when we got to the farm, after the Y'shtola meeting, we're going to go and round up pirates. And then I was like, oh, great. So here comes the quest doldrums where we have to do bullshit for 5 levels before the story advances.
Exactly.
But unlike with the Ul'dah quest, where we bounce between 7-ish different people and talk to one person, do one task, talk to the next person, do a task in these unconnected events, we actually get a continuous story in one location here. So we don't get a whirlwind tour of assholes of La Noscea here, unlike in Thanalan, where we saw 5 different organizations and have...
We talked to everybody.
Right. But no, great. Here we spend the whole time in middle La Noscea. We are on the farm the entire time doing farm business. This is what is happening in Limsa. This is the next step in the growth of Limsa, where they are turning their rope cutting knives into plowshares and they are getting to work. And these are the frictions that are being experienced as this recent change that Admiral Merylvib directed.
Yes.
These are the frictions that she has caused with this huge culture shift and the repercussions.
Yeah, I felt very much connected to this live transformation that La Noscea is seeing. There's definitely a connection there, and I appreciated that.
This, though, is what I wanted from Ul'dah, and why I was so bummed out by the fetchy bullshit in Ul'dah is because there's no story. There are probably 6-7 levels of zero story, just time killing in Ul'dah until the plot line with the stolen crown and so on picks up again. Yeah,
Ul'dah definitely has problems. It has all of these refugee camps. It's a major issue that they're dealing with post calamity. It's a huge socioeconomic problem, and also we have these the monetarists and these conglomerates.
So in La Noscea, we get this combined theming of the story that focuses on one group of people. It is not just a bunch of random events strung together. It is actually a story. We have an arc from beginning to end over the course of these 5 levels. We hit the bigger quest story beats as well in the process. We meet Y'shtola. We see our first Ascian. And we also learn more about the kidnappings, which is the micro plot of the Limsa storyline in these first 15 levels. So we have a full story of the Summerford Farms right here, with having this problem person going from being a piece of shit to being somewhat actually redeemed. And this is also, of course, one of the themes of the game as a whole is redemption.
I think that might be because Ul'dah is host to a variety of issues. And so while it is disjointed and we're talking to a bunch of different people, we do get a broad picture. It's not a deep, it's not in depth, but it's a broad picture of Thanalan in general, left to right.
I mostly disagree because we don't get to know any of the people we meet. So while we are literally taking in a broader piece of the world, I think that is so shallow as to be meaningless. I don't know who these people are or what they even represent.
I would agree with you. It's a very superficial, kind of broad overview of all the different things that are going on in Ul'dah. But no, you don't get an in-depth understanding of how all of these different things play together. But I mean, you'll spend plenty of time in Ul'dah going forward. You will be able to examine all of that stuff. But in the early MSQ, no. They can only go so deep. Maybe that was the point, was to just give new players a brief overview of where you are.
You don't need to showcase every single thing in this portion. I don't buy the quantity over quality argument, because the quality is pretty bad in terms of any moment in that sequence.
I would be interested to see or to hear other people's opinions on this. If, comparing the MSQ, the early MSQ between Ul'dah, Limsa Lominsa, and Gridania, and perceived quality differences there. I think that's interesting. I think everybody's going to have their own opinion on that.
I agree. I don't know how many people have been crazy enough to play through all three of them.
I would say a decent amount of people. A lot of alts out there.
Well, that's about 2/3 of the Limsa questline done. But next time we'll be taking a break and we'll talk about the Marauder class.
Yeah. I'm excited because I think this will be the first time that I've started a tank class from zero.
Gladiator.
Oh shit. Wow, that was a long time ago. I'm full of shit. Yeah, so we'll do some marauding. We'll break some boulders. I hear that's
spoilers.
That's what you do as a marauder. Very excited. 'Cause I fucking hate boulders, man. Anyway, well, that'll do it for this episode. Again, if you have any opinions on what we discussed, find us online. You can tweet us at podreturn, or you can send us an email at podreturnffxiv@gmail.com. And as always, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.